It is the first Sunday of the 2024 NFL season. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and there's plenty to get to here on the show, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in. I really appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. And if you're looking for Eagles shows every single day right here on Eagles Now on YouTube, then hit that subscribe button. A lot of good games in this early window. Stepping aside to do this video, and then I'm back at it with a couple of different screens to watch the afternoon slate and then a primetime matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams. Let's begin here. The Dallas Cowboys have made quarterback Dak Prescott the richest player in the history of the National Football League. Hours before the Cowboys were set to kick off against the Cleveland Browns, the Cowboys signed him to a 4-year contract worth $240 million, $60 million per year, and now Dak Prescott becomes the richest player in the history of the league and the first player ever to make $60 million in average annual salary. Now, I think personally, this is great news for the Philadelphia Eagles because we've seen what the Dallas Cowboys have been when it counts, when it matters, when Prescott is Dallas's quarterback. Now, he has been very successful in his NFL career, wins and losses in the regular season and against Philadelphia. He is 73-41 in his career during the regular season. He is 9-4 against the Eagles in his career. The only sub-500 season that he's had was back in 2020 when he went 2-3 and then suffered that nasty season-ending injury. And for his career, he's thrown 202 touchdowns to 74 interceptions. Last year, after leading the league in interceptions in 2022, he turned that around and he was a top 10 quarterback in this league. And we know that when you're running an organization, when you are in quarterback purgatory and in search of a quarterback floating in mediocrity, you're usually a bad team. So the Cowboys really had no choice but to pay him because what were the alternative options? Cooper Rush is their backup. Trey Lance is their third stringer. Trey Lance just threw 5 interceptions in the preseason finale. The Cowboys aren't going to be bad enough this year, most likely, barring a disaster, to have a high draft pick in order to draft their next franchise quarterback. And the free agency crop of quarterbacks after this year doesn't really move the needle. So Dallas was put into a corner between a rock and a hard place, and they had to fork over the cash for Dak Prescott, who has won a lot of games for Dallas, and he's made them relevant because he's been relevant. But what happens when it matters? And this is why it's good news for Philadelphia, because you don't worry about Dallas as a legitimate Super Bowl threat, and we'll see what happens for the Cowboys against a very good Cleveland Browns defense, led by defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, who was the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia when they won Super Bowl 52. Dak Prescott is 2-5 in his playoff career, consistently shows up small in big games, and you never really take him seriously in the biggest of moments. And as you look ahead for Dallas, they have now committed big-time dollars to Dak and CeeDee Lamb. And they're going to keep their quarterback wide receiver duo together. Last year, it was an elite combination in the regular season. They got bounced in the wild card round. They got crushed by the Green Bay Packers. I am wondering what this means for Micah Parsons moving forward, because next offseason, he's going to be looking for a new contract. So I think his situation becomes interesting. As we've talked about here on the show in a lighthearted manner, I think secretly Micah Parsons might want to be a Philadelphia Eagle. He has complimented Howie Roseman on numerous occasions. He was jealous when Quinyon Mitchell fell to the Eagles. He is a Harrisburg, PA native. He went to Penn State. And the Eagles, after game 1 at least, it looks as though they might need an edge rusher. Will Dallas be able to pay that big three? Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb's now making $34 million per year. Dak Prescott will make on average $60 million per year. And Micah Parsons might try to overtake Nick Bosa as the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football, or at least the highest paid defensive player in the history of football. So moving forward for Dallas, things are going to be interesting. Next, let's talk about the Eagles quarterback and Jalen Hurts. Another good sign for him coming out of this game on Friday night against the Packers in Brazil. A tremendous victory for Philadelphia, all things considered. They turned the ball over 3 times. Their offense was awful in that first quarter. They turned it over at inopportune times, deep in their own territory, and then Jalen Hurts threw that pick in the end zone. They have some defensive lapses, yet they still put up 35 points against a really good Packers team and beat a really good Packers team. And in this game, with Jalen Hurts not playing at all in the preseason, you were looking for some strides from last year. And we saw some of those strides individually and with this offensive system. Jalen Hurts last year against the Blitz was so bad. That was partially on him. It was partially on this Eagles offensive scheme for not having the necessary answers when other teams dialed up pressure. How about how Jalen Hurts performed against the Blitz versus the Packers? He was 6 of 8 for 91 yards, 11.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, and 1 run, according to Pro Football Focus. Now, the Packers didn't send extra rushers at Hurts at an insane rate. 9 of 39 dropbacks, 23.1%. That was a little bit surprising to me, but for Jalen Hurts to have early success against the Blitz is a good sign because he was almost surgical. 6 of 8, 91 yards. Yards per attempt is fantastic at 11.4 and a touchdown. And I imagine that teams are going to blitz Jalen Hurts a lot more in the upcoming weeks. And the Atlanta Falcons did lose today to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is the Eagles' Week 2 opponent. Their defense did look good. Kirk Cousins did not look good. Was sacked a couple of times, threw a couple of picks, fumbled the ball a couple of times, some of them negated by Steelers penalties. But I imagine that Atlanta is going to look at what the Packers did, and they're going to try to send even more pressure at Jalen Hurts. But I think the Eagles could have some answers for it. Because against the Blitz, when the Eagles played the Packers, unlike last year, there were answers to the Blitz. There were Blitz beaters that Kellen Moore had built into those plays, which helped out Jalen Hurts. Last year, there was not. And I talked about this on the show yesterday. Pre-snap motion, baby. Finally, Eagles were 32nd in pre-snap motion last year. Inexcusable for today's NFL. Inexcusable for today's NFL. It's not like pre-snap motion is a new thing. But Hurts with motion against the Packers, 15 to 21, 212 yards, 10.1 yards per attempt, and 2 touchdowns. Hurts without motion, 5 of 13, 66 yards, more than 5 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, and his 2 picks came on plays without pre-snap motion. So Kellen Moore used motion at a 66% rate. That's the Eagles' highest mark since 2020 and well above their 35% mark from last year. That's good coaching. That's being prepared. So again, I would expect teams to send more pressure toward Hurts, but when the Packers did send pressure, I thought Hurts did a good job of recognizing it, where it was coming from, and going away from that. But then the play calling and the play designs were smart because the Eagles had answers against the Blitz. Let's now talk about this Eagles defense. Casuals will tell you that the Eagles defense sucked against Green Bay. I will tell you, because I know ball, half joking, I'm confident in myself and my football analysis. I will tell you that the Eagles defense helped win Philadelphia the game. Here's why. The offense did the defense no favors early in this game. Interception, 3rd play of the game. Next drive, bad snap exchange between Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts. What did the Eagles defense do? Held the Packers to 2 field goals on those drives to help set the tone, keep this team in it. When you are playing a 60-minute football game, it needs to be complimentary football. That's what the Eagles did. And it allowed Philadelphia, the defensive stands early, to overcome losing the turnover battle 3-1. And so while the Eagles gave up 414 total net yards, how about this? This is good coaching. This is Vic Fangio and the effect that he can have on this team. They held Green Bay to 3 of 11 on 3rd downs. They came up with a couple of sacks and quarterback pressures on Jordan Love. And Jordan Love only went 17 of 34. So defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, I thought, does have some teaching points, but I thought he did a good job. And while the Eagles gave up too many big plays, they were good in some money situations against Green Bay. And again, good to see in game one. In other divisional news, the New York Giants are a disaster. When the Vikings were up 28-6 on the road at MetLife Stadium in the third quarter, that was the largest lead ever that head coach Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings has ever had during his tenure. Giants fans at that point were leaving MetLife Stadium on the opening Sunday of the 2024 season in the third quarter. Daniel Jones threw 2 picks, one a pick six deep in his own territory to Andrew Van Ginkel, one of the fastest pick sixes that you will ever see. And while the Giants are struggling with question marks at quarterback, at head coach, at general manager, the Philadelphia Eagles have Saquon Barkley. And John Morris said, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep if Saquon goes to the Birds. Saquon Barkley, hat trick game one for Philadelphia, looks insanely explosive. As for the Eagles' week 2 opponent, the Atlanta Falcons, defensively look good. Keep in mind, they played a bad Steelers offense, which I think settled for 5 or 6 field goals. Offense for Atlanta, a lot of new pieces, right? Led by quarterback Kirk Cousins and some young pieces, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. That Atlanta offense didn't look good. Now, they were going up against one of the better defenses in the NFL, if not the best, because Pittsburgh's defense, while their offense stinks, their defense is elite. But that offense didn't really impress me all that much for Atlanta. And now they come to Philadelphia, primetime Monday Night Football, where Kirk Cousins has struggled in these primetime games, desperate to not go 0-2. TJ Watt was a menace against that Falcons offensive line. Hopefully, that allows this Eagles defense to get that pass rush going. Just wanted to pass along some news, notes, observations from the first Sunday of the 2024 NFL season. It's awesome that it is here. Don't mind the sun ray coming in, but the sun is shining down on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll catch you tomorrow back in the studio. Thanks for watching Eagles Now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace.